A story by Bedtime. Have you ever heard a rumor so disturbing that you pray it's just gossip? In a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Lagos, people still whisper about a girl named Anita. At first, no one paid attention to her. She was the kind of girl you would pass on the street without noticing twice, calm, polite, and always keeping to herself. But one night, everything changed. A security guard patrolling the local cemetery swore he saw someone kneeling beside a fresh grave, scooping muddy water into a bottle and drinking it like ordinary water. When he flashed his torch, the girl slowly turned her head. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice shaking. The light revealed Anita's face, pale, calm, and completely unfazed. "Please, don't disturb me," she whispered softly. By morning, the story had spread across the entire area. People couldn't believe it. Anita. The quiet girl who greeted everyone politely every morning. The same girl who helped neighbors carry groceries. Something about it felt impossible. Yet the guard insisted on what he saw. But the real question wasn't just why Anita was in the graveyard at night. The terrifying question was this: how long had she been doing it, and what could make someone start drinking water from graves in the first place? To understand Anita's strange behavior, you have to go back several years earlier, long before the rumors started. Anita was once known as one of the brightest girls in her secondary school. She laughed easily, loved music, and was deeply attached to her mother, the one person who understood her better than anyone else. "Mama, when I grow up, I'll buy you a big house," Anita used to say while helping her cook dinner. Her mother would laugh and reply, "Just be a good person, my daughter. That is enough for me." But everything changed the year Anita turned 16. One evening, her mother suddenly fell ill and was rushed to the hospital. The illness moved quickly and cruelly. Within days, Anita found herself standing beside a wooden coffin, staring at the still face of the woman who had been her entire world. She refused to cry during the burial. She just stared quietly at the grave as the soil covered the coffin. That night, she returned to the cemetery alone. Kneeling beside the fresh mound of dirt, she whispered softly into the darkness, "Mama, can you still hear me?" The wind rustled through the trees, but there was no answer. After the funeral, Anita's life slowly began to change in ways people didn't immediately notice. Every evening after school, she started visiting her mother's grave. At first, it was simply a grieving daughter looking for comfort. She would sit beside the grave for hours, talking softly as if her mother was still listening. "I miss you so much, Mama," she would whisper, tracing small lines in the soil with her finger. One night, as she sat there crying quietly, she heard footsteps behind her. An old woman stood near the cemetery gate, watching her carefully. The woman's voice was low and strange. "You come here every night," she said. Anita wiped her tears. "It's my mother's grave." The old woman nodded slowly. "The dead are never completely gone, you know." Anita frowned. "What do you mean?" The woman leaned closer and pointed toward the wet soil around the grave. "The water that gathers around fresh graves carries the last breath of the dead. Some people believe drinking it lets you feel their presence again." Anita immediately shook her head in disgust. "That's impossible." The woman simply smiled and walked away into the darkness. But that strange sentence lingered in Anita's mind long after she left the cemetery that night. Days passed, but Anita couldn't forget what the old woman had said. The thought haunted her every time she sat beside her mother's grave. One night after heavy rain, small pools of muddy water had collected around the soil. Anita stared at it silently. "What if," she whispered to herself before quickly shaking her head. "No, that's crazy." But grief has a way of pushing people toward desperate thoughts. The loneliness inside her chest felt unbearable. She wanted, more than anything, to feel her mother close again. Her hands trembled as she slowly scooped a little water into her palm. "Mama, if you're really there, give me a sign," she whispered. For a long moment, she just stared at the muddy water. Then she closed her eyes and drank it. The taste was bitter and earthy, making her cough immediately. "What am I doing?" she muttered, wiping her mouth. Nothing happened that night. But the next time she returned to the cemetery, she felt something strange. A sudden chill brushed across her skin even though the air was still. Anita turned around quickly. For a moment, she could swear she heard a faint whisper behind her. From that moment on, Anita began to change in ways no one around her understood. The quiet girl who once laughed easily became even more withdrawn. At night, she continued visiting the cemetery, repeating the strange ritual again and again. Each time she drank the grave water, she convinced herself she felt something: soft whispers in the wind, shadows moving where nothing stood, and sudden chills that made her heart race. "Mama, is that you?" she would whisper into the darkness. Meanwhile, people in her neighborhood started noticing small things that didn't make sense. Anita was often seen returning home very late at night with mud on her shoes. Sometimes neighbors heard her talking softly when no one else was around. Her closest friend, Busy, once asked her directly, "Anita, what's going on with you? You look tired all the time." Anita forced a small smile. "I'm fine. Just thinking about my mother." Busy nodded sympathetically, but something about Anita's eyes unsettled her. They looked distant, almost as if she were listening to voices no one else could hear. For years, Anita's secret remained hidden, until the night everything finally came to light. Around midnight, a cemetery security guard was doing his usual patrol when he noticed movement near a newly buried grave. At first, he thought it was an animal. But as he moved closer and shone his flashlight, he froze in shock. A young woman was kneeling in the mud, carefully filling a bottle with the water poured around the grave. Then she raised the bottle and drank from it slowly. "Hey! What are you doing there?" the guard shouted. The girl turned slowly toward the light. It was Anita. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. "Please," she said quietly, "don't stop me." The guard staggered backward in disbelief. By morning, the entire neighborhood had heard the story. Some people claimed Anita had been possessed by spirits. Others believed she was practicing dark rituals for power. But Anita herself never explained the truth. She simply disappeared from the area weeks later without warning. Even today, people who pass that cemetery late at night swear they sometimes see a shadow kneeling beside the graves. And every time they remember Anita, one chilling question comes to mind: what exactly did she awaken the night she first drank from the grave? If this story got you hooked, I beg don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments why you love the story. Thank you, lovelies, for listening. More interesting videos are dropping soon. Bye.